Hello there, I'm Gloria Macarenko. Well, here we are on the other side of summer with a program introducing you to people who make our city great. This is Our Vancouver. Coming up, freediver Andrew Chin forages for a feast from the Salish Sea. And a primer for teenagers who get to vote for the first time. But first, paddling, snowshoeing, hiking for 27,000 kilometers to complete the Trans-Canada Trail. Well, we are an outdoorsy city. So many of us spend a lot of time in nature, but filmmaker Dianne Whelan took outdoorsy to a whole new level. She became one of the first people to complete the entire Trans-Canada Trail. And Dianne Whelan is still outside today, but a little closer to the city this time. Hello there.
Hi, Gloria. How you doing?
I am doing very well. What an interesting time for you. You know, a lot of us have done segments of the Trans-Canada Trail, but you've taken it to a whole new level. Why did you want to take this on?
Well, it's a great question, Gloria. First of all, just to give it context, I'm a documentary filmmaker and an author, and I make adventure films. My last one was on Mount Everest, 40 Days at Base Camp, and the book was called 40 Days on Everest. And before that, up in the high Arctic with the Inuit, I made a film with the National Film Board called This Land and a book called This Vanishing Land. So I make adventure films. So clearly the longest trail in the world was a strong calling for me. But I also would like to give credit to my mother because in the early 1990s, she made a donation to the Trans-Canada Trail on behalf of our family, and it was something she really wanted to do. So it felt really great. Sometimes when you have a vision or a dream, it takes multiple generations for that to happen. So it was really an honor to see my mother's dream through for her.
Yeah, and in seeing that dream through, you committed several years to this project, didn't you?
It took 6 years, Gloria, and I thought it was going to take 500 days. So clearly a bit of an underestimation there. But on day 10 of the journey, I realized I hadn't traveled as far in 10 days as I thought I could do in one day. So I burned my schedule, and I like to joke with people that I dropped the rabbit suit for the turtle shell because I realized I had to do a take two. I just realized, yeah, why was I out here? Does it matter how fast and how many kilometers I go a day? And once I had that little speaking to with myself, I realized, no, it doesn't matter how fast or how hard. What matters is the most meaningful way. So slow down, connect, self-care, and take it a day at a time. And I didn't know day at a time would be 6 years, but there you go.
Well, that's what I was going to ask. Did you have a clear plan for this Newfoundland to Victoria trek and just how much each segment would take you then when you started?
I had a fantasy land idea, I guess. I mean, it's not until you're out there and get a reality check. But, you know, having said that too, I mean, I knew that no one had done the entire trail the way I was doing it. There was a man named Dana Meese who did it over 10 years, and he was the first person to walk the trail. But the Trans-Canada Trail is made up of 7,000 to 8,000 kilometers of water trails as well, depending on the route you take. And no one had attempted those in addition to the land trails. So I knew I was going into some uncharted territory, and I just surrendered to just, you know, taking things a day at a time. And I never really planned too much far in advance, Gloria. People in Newfoundland would be, where are you going to be going through the trail in Saskatchewan? And I'm like, you're going to have to talk to me when I reach Saskatchewan. I have no idea. I just focused on what was before me and kept it manageable. And the more time you invest in a schedule, the more rigid you become to like, oh, I must hang on to the schedule. And one of the lessons I learned out there very quickly was let go of the schedule. I mean, you have to be responsive to the environment that's around you. And when you're in nature, Mama Nature's in control. You're not, and you need to be respectful and responsive to what's actually unfolding.
Let go of the schedule. I think we could all learn from that at some point in our lives, for sure. Now, what about some of the more challenging aspects of the trail when you found yourself saying, "How did I get myself into this?"
Well, I mean, you know, again, the focus when you're out there, it's kind of like I'd like to tell people you could probably learn what I learned in 6 years out there, just meditating in your living room every day for, for 6 months or something. It really is about staying calm, staying grounded, and just accepting what's unfolding. So there were, I had some fears leaving Gloria, as any woman would, leaving and camping by yourself out in the middle of nowhere. But what's great and what that I learned about myself anyway was that all the fears that I had were fears that I carried out there with me. And by confronting those fears, by doing it, those fears eventually disappeared. And I learned a lot of things along the way too that really gave me the wisdom necessary to do it safely. And a lot of the things that I learned were in Indigenous communities as I crossed this land.
Yeah, good point. Good point. So now that you've put this particular trek behind you, or the actual, the work, the foot after, step after step with this trek, what's it been like? What's your life like now?
Well, like I'm joking, I put down the paddle and picked up a drill. I have a couple of acres on the Sunshine Coast, and I've been away from home for 7 years. So I returned to very tall grass and trees that had grown, and a couple of squirrels that moved into my writing studio. So I've been gutting out my studio and still camping. Re-entries happening gradually. I'm in a very nice place today that I traveled just so I could speak to you, Gloria. But yeah. I'm still camping out there, which is a nice re-entry. I figure by October I should be indoors again and more of civility. But I'm still running around out in the middle of the night, going, enjoying the outdoors.
Now, what about your documentary about your trek? This 500 days in the wild.
Yeah.
You did the work. We get to enjoy it. What do you hope we take away from watching your film?
Hope that I can pass on hope, Gloria. I think we really need some positivity and some hope right now. We give shadow the front page of the newspaper and the lead line in a lot of our stories. And I'm a journalist, so I understand why. It's what people are gravitating to. But having said that, we really need some hope right now. And my time in Indigenous communities is where I found that hope. I really believe all my films are about, if we can bring traditional Indigenous wisdom with science and technology, bring those two things together, we will find sustainable ways and more inclusive stories to carry us forward into the future. And so I hope that that's what I can pass on, is some positivity and some hope as we move forward and collectively deal with the issues that we have before us.
Okay, and how can we see it, your film?
Well, Gloria, right now I'm in the process of grant writing. So the next step, I think the only thing harder than doing the trail is making an independent documentary about it. So I'm in the process of grant writing and just got lined up. I found an editor that I really respect that I'm going to work with, Bonnie Devlin, and just getting my little team together. And the edit's going to take a while. We're looking at a 9 or 10 month edit. So hopefully by early 2023, the film will be ready to go.
Dianne, thank you so much, especially for sharing a little bit of hope with us today. Really great to talk to you.
You too, Gloria.
You're watching our Vancouver.
Okay, it's time for one of our favorite features. This is where we get to showcase a number of the photographs that have been sent in by you, our audience. And you've been busy. So many of you are out enjoying these late summer days and evenings. Liz Henderson took a walk around Deer Lake, and this is one of the trails through the trees on the west side. Liz, thank you for taking us there. And Christine Benna spent the day at lovely Steveston Village. It's always picturesque there. Thank you so much. And finally, Jason Cole was out for a Coquitlam sunset. This is the view over the golf course. So lovely. Jason, thanks so much. Still lots of summer left in the season. Send us more photographs. It's easy. Just send them to bcphotos@cbc.ca. bcphotos@cbc.ca. Now, photographers also love capturing BC's wildlife, and the bighorn sheep in southern BC is an iconic herd. It's in trouble, though. A viral infection has killed dozens of animals, and as Brady Strachan tells us, scientists say there is nothing they can do to stop it.
That potential mortality should be coming up.
Yeah. It's not the kind of wild sheep chase these researchers want to be doing. They're searching for California bighorn sheep using equipment that tracks radio collars on the animals.
The individual with the collar is most likely towards the highway.
Their readings indicate 9 to 12 collared sheep in the region are no longer moving, and that usually means the animals have died.
So we're looking in like the 60 to 80% mortality rate from a potential population of 230 to 250 individuals. So it's a mass mortality event really is what's occurring here.
California bighorn sheep are one of 4 species of wild sheep in BC. The animals are susceptible to infections which have decimated herds. The disease that is killing sheep here is called blue tongue. It's a viral infection transmitted by small flying midges that's not often seen on this side of the border. Biologists believe seasonal wind patterns move infected insects from areas endemic in the U.S. up here into southern British Columbia. Outbreaks continue until the first frost in the fall, which kills off the midges infected with the disease. Biologists say record-breaking temperatures and a lack of rain this year are also a factor. With few water sources, sheep congregate in groups, increasing opportunities for the disease to spread.
This disease, as it currently stands, is exacerbated by this drought period and is going to be more frequently due to human-caused climate change. So there's another mortality.
Many of the deceased animals have ended up near a wildlife fence. It's grim work for researchers as they come across carcass after carcass across the landscape.
This amount of loss this quickly is devastating. I don't really have any other words for that.
Conservationists are concerned about this herd and wonder if it will be able to recover to numbers seen before the outbreak.
They're an iconic species. Here in British Columbia, I don't think most people know how many sheep or how special it is here.
Near the end of a depressing day in the field, a glimmer of hope.
There's one live one right there.
Oh, thank God.
Researchers hope this ewe will be one of the few bighorns to survive and be an important member of the herd as it tries to recover from this deadly year. Brady Strachan, CBC News, Grand Forks, British Columbia.
Andrew Chin is a free diver and underwater photographer who usually travels the world. During the pandemic, though, he's been spending time close to home and learning how to cook what he catches. Andrew Chin harvests prawns and hand-picked sea cucumbers. So here's a look at how he makes one of his favorite childhood recipes.
The feeling of being connected to the land and our oceans and living off what they provide has changed my view of food and our relationship with it. I'm Andrew, a freediver, spearfisherman, and second-generation Canadian. I didn't always feel proud of my ethnicity or my culture, and often tried to hide aspects of them to fit in. After spending most of my adult life outside Canada, I'm now learning how to express my culture and cuisine through the local ingredients our province has to offer. Today, we're heading out on our buddy Alex's boat, checking his prawn traps that he laid yesterday. And because they're so fresh and still alive, you can actually eat the tails raw. We'll also be jumping in the water, looking for some sea cucumber. Sea cucumber is a delicacy in many Asian cultures. They're available year-round in our waters and can be easily harvested by hand with a fishing line. It has a delicate flavor and tastes amazing with a simple batter and seasoning. While they may not look like much, I promise you'll love this easy recipe. So we've got our sea cucumber here all cut up and ready to go. This marinade is really easy. We're just gonna go in with our white pepper. Now this is gonna be the pepper of our salt and pepper sea cucumber. And then we're gonna go in with our salts to the same bowl. And then to that, we're gonna crack in 1 egg. And then we're just gonna give that a really nice mix. And now that that's all mixed up, we're just gonna go ahead in with our cornstarch. And this is gonna create a marinade as well as a little bit of a thick batter to coat our sea cucumber with. And then we're gonna go into the hot oil for just about 3 to 5 minutes until they're nice and crispy. They've just been going for about 3 minutes, so now we're just gonna take them out of the oil. And we're just gonna place them onto some paper towel on a plate to let them drain. And then now we're just gonna fry the garlic and the chilies. We're just gonna fry those off really quickly in the hot oil. Now that our chili and garlic has fried up nicely, we're just gonna go in with all of our sea cucumber. And we're just gonna give that a nice toss. And top it off with all of that fried garlic and chili. Now that we're done with our sea cucumber, we're just gonna do our prawns that we caught earlier today really quickly. So we're gonna go ahead and do the tails raw, but you only wanna do this if your prawns are live. And then we're gonna deep fry the heads really lightly. So I'm just gonna take them and I'm gonna lightly dust them in cornstarch. This is gonna help us get a really crisp texture to the prawn head. And we're gonna let that go until it gets really nice and crispy. We have deep fried prawn heads, sashimi tails, and salt and pepper sea cucumber. Spin on a classic squid dish.
Coming up, another story that involves taking to the ocean, this time to chase away pandemic blues.
My name is Chloé. I live in Vancouver, BC, in the West End.
Have you ever had a bunch of crap in your house that you really want to get rid of, but you don't want to drive all the way to a thrift store? There's gotta be a better way. There is. Cast off the shackles of capitalism and join your local buy nothing group.
I'm not actually sure how it started exactly. I hate the cold. I have never done a polar bear swim. I'm from Borneo, which is like near the equator. But in January, it had been, as it has been for a lot of people, it had been a really long year. And I had gone mentally to pretty dark places, and I really needed to shock my system a little bit and create happier moments and things to look forward to. And I've always loved the ocean, and I decided, since I can't travel, I can't go anywhere, I'm going to try and enjoy what I have here and make the most of it and give myself a reason to get through the week. And we came down here once in the first week of January thinking it would be kind of a one-off, and we loved it so much. It was like shocking your body back to life. We decided we would do it every week because it was so great, and I put a video on Instagram. And my friends went nuts for it. Oh my God, I can't believe you're doing this. And people started sending in ideas of how I could do it. So I did like a bunny hop. I've dressed up as a taco. Losing the ability to travel. Like my mom, my dad, and my brother live in 3 different countries. I like to dance. I love festivals. I like huge gatherings. All of those things have been off the table for a long time. I kind of got to a point where I had survived 2020. And I knew that I needed to do a little bit more than survive for 2021. This is really the perfect time to do the thing that Vancouver has that you've never done. If you've never biked the full loop of Stanley Park, or if you've never gone rollerblading, or, put on some music on a loudspeaker and just kind of danced in a park or something like that. Whatever is accessible to you, it's honestly, even little tiny things are a lot more helpful than you might think.
You are watching Our Vancouver. I'm Gloria Macarenko. Now, if you know anyone who turned 18 in time for this election, listen up. CBC Kids News has all you need to know about the federal election and how to cast your ballot.
Canadian elections. Do kids even care? Here's what you told CBC Kids News.
As voters of the future, we should know lots about the electoral system.
I would one day like to be the Prime Minister, or at least an important change-making leader.
I want to know how Canada functions, so I can help make sure that Canada is a country that is inclusive and good to the environment.
So, how do elections work? Here's what you need to know. In Canada, we usually have elections at least every 4 years. Our country is divided up into 338 electoral districts called ridings. Candidates, or people, representing different parties run in each riding, hoping to get the most votes. The winners represent the people in their ridings at the House of Commons in Ottawa. They're called Members of Parliament, MPs for short. The party that wins the most ridings across Canada forms our federal government. The leader of the winning party becomes the Prime Minister. But here's where it gets a little bit complicated. Stay with me. The party that wins the most ridings, known as seats in the House of Commons, forms our federal government. If they win more than half the seats, they form a majority. If they win less than half the seats, but still more than any other party, they form a minority government. That's a win for those other parties, because they can work together and block a minority government from passing laws they don't agree with. So, what does it matter if you can't vote anyway? Well, here's the thing. It's the politicians in the House of Commons who decide the rules for our country. Laws that can affect you and me. Like how old you need to be to vote, when Canada goes to war, and how much money we're going to spend on climate change. Although you may not be able to vote, there are still ways for you, yes you, to be involved with the Canadian electoral system. The MP in your riding acts as a messenger between you and Parliament. For example, you can always send letters to your MP. It's their duty to communicate issues that are important to Canadians to the House of Commons. Then, when an election happens, you can decide if they did a good job or a not so good job at representing you in Parliament. Alright, so we just covered when elections are held, who gets elected, and how you can get involved. Want to know more? Check out our other election videos to learn about the major political parties in Canada and how to vote. For CBC Kids News, I'm Isabel DeRoy-Olsen.
Hi, I'm Cassie Carbonin, and you're watching Our Vancouver.
It's one life to live, so live it the best you can.
If you want to see some live music, there are concerts happening, although with added protocols in place. The Hallucination brings Indigenous electronic dance music to Malcolm Bowl on Wednesday, September 8th. And the Vancouver Fringe Festival is on this year in hybrid form from September 9th to the 19th. There are some live shows, some online productions, and a selection of stories for everyone's taste. Just go to vancouverfringe.com for more information.
Hey, Grant Lawrence here from CBC Music with the return of a beloved indie band long thought swallowed by the rising tides of time. Islands, the musical project of Vancouver Islander Nick Thorburn, right there in the sunglasses, has returned after a hiatus of several years. Now, before I introduce you to their new tune, let's go back almost 20 years to a small town on Vancouver Island called Campbell River. That is where Nick Thorburn formed his first band called the Unicorns.
I was born a unicorn. I missed the arc, but I could have sworn you'd wait for me. I was born a unicorn. I could have sworn you believed in me. Then how come all the other unicorns are dead?
That's the Unicorns, going back to 2003 with I Was Born a Unicorn. Now, after coming together in Campbell River, the band relocated to Montreal and became incredibly popular in the indie scene, part of a burgeoning wave of highly touted rock exports alongside Arcade Fire and Wolf Parade and the Deers that put Montreal on the musical map. The Unicorns broke up in 2004, and shortly after, Nick Thorburn emerged with Islands. The first album was called Return to the Sea, and it was inspired in part by his dad, Ed Thorburn, a fisheries officer who worked with Luna, the orphaned orca off the coast of Vancouver Island.
You can whistle my name, it's the mines in Africa that are to blame. You can scoop out my brain, shape it into an ear, and then tell me your pain.
From 2006, that is Islands with one of the band's most beloved and endearing songs, Rough Gem. Now, Islands would go on to release several more successful records, taking Nick Thorburn from living in Montreal to New York City and eventually Los Angeles. In 2016, Islands ended their 10-year run of indie rock brilliance with a highly unusual move. They released 2 full albums at once, both of which saw success on the Billboard charts. Then they broke up.
It's jumping off, it's coming on stronger. If you can't feel it, it won't be longer. Who knows where we are? We all come along, we're just staying for the weekend.
Yeah, showcasing a more synth-pop sound there. That's Islands with The Weeknd. And that video filmed on location in Colombia in 2016. That same year, Nick Thorburn announced the breakup of Islands. But this year, Nick Thorburn and the band surprisingly re-emerged from the indie rock sea to release their first album in 5 years. It's called Ilomania. It came out in June, and it's a playful, fun record with songs like this one. That is Islands with their new song, Set the Fairlight, which is currently climbing the CBC Music Top 20. Set the Fairlight by Islands is the song that you need to add to your desert island playlist for this week. I'm Grant Lawrence from CBC Music. Check in with you again soon.
Coming up, a huge BC effort to remove plastic from our ocean.
I get up, make my bed, try again. They say I owe it to myself that I need to get some help.
You are watching Our Vancouver. I'm Gloria Macarenko. Now, millions of tons of plastic are swirling about in the world's oceans right now. It is one of the world's top environmental problems. And as that problem grows, so do efforts to do something about it. Well, in BC this year, a new program is putting millions of dollars into removing some of the plastic. Greg Rasmussen takes us on a plastic hunting expedition.
Twilight on the west coast of Vancouver Island, an idyllic vista that plays into Canada's image as a relatively untouched haven in a polluted world. But under the scenic veneer, a deeply troubling, dirty secret.
Pretty well everywhere we stop here, we'd be finding garbage, and really difficult place to clean up. Even getting the garbage off is really a challenge.
This is where the world's unending love affair with plastics crashes into the heartbreak of its impact on the environment. This remote beach rarely sees humans, but it does see a lot of plastic. The crew is sorting waste which is being driven ashore by wind and ocean currents. And there's a lot of it.
Oh, this is good.
Some of the debris can be traced. For instance, this hockey shin pad was likely from a cargo container that fell off a ship in the 1990s.
It was one of the first documented container spills.
Every step in the cleanup involves sweat and muscle. Debris is often entangled with wood or other natural objects.
I can just cut through them pretty easy.
This dock likely broke up somewhere on the west coast during a storm. Its large styrofoam floats are the target of the cleanup crew.
We can roll it over.
Freeing the non-biodegradable foam from the wooden planks is just step one.
Okay.
That's a good piece of foam.
Once separated, the foam has to be carried hundreds of meters. Just off the beach, a vivid lesson on why styrofoam is enemy number one.
This is an old dock that washed up in big pieces. So this stuff gets smashed apart by the logs, all of the winter storm action. We'll just grind this down into small pieces. We're left with one little piece like that that can appear like food for some creatures. This ends up in a lot of birds. You can see already, just with this degradation, it's become part of the ground.
With so much shoreline to clean, the little stuff usually gets left behind.
We're looking at trying to get the big stuff before it turns into the small stuff.
Once sorted, it's stuffed into giant bags called super sacks. They line the beach, waiting for pickup by helicopter.
Not exactly light. And this is what we have to walk over with all of this.
Species cleanup is covering 1,200 kilometers of coastline, with crews scrambling over jagged rocks and jumbles of slippery, wobbly logs.
That probably weighs 200 pounds, just that alone.
Often, debris is a tangled mess.
Plastic bags.
Half buried and too time-consuming to extract.
It would take us a month just to do this section alone, to clear out all of the little stuff that's in here.
A member of the Heshquiet First Nation, Jeff Ignis grew up on these beaches and has seen the plastic pile up over his lifetime.
Diving birds that dive in the ocean, they come up with this wrapped around their necks all the time. They try and eat it when they're diving, and it gets tangled around them, and then they drown. They can't fly, they can't swim, they can't eat. They starve and they die. We had one whale that came ashore that had this kind of green netting wrapped around 3/4 of the animal.
Plastic kills in a variety of ways. Nets and ropes entangle some creatures. Small pieces are mistaken for food and end up causing obstructions in the bellies of animals. And microplastics. The smallest particles are in every ocean around the world, and increasingly inside creatures up and down the food chain, including humans. Further north, another beach, another crew, and days spent fighting through high seas,
It's got a lot of heavy sand on it, I think.
freeing trapped debris, and sorting and weighing every piece that's been found. On board one of the support vessels, skipper Kevin Smith says plastic dumping in the seas needs to be tackled at the source.
It's quite sad to see just how much is coming from the fishing industry. Deep sea fisheries, it's big trawl nets and enormous heavy lines that are just choking out the beaches.
Recently, he shot this video.
One of the absolute worst sites for degraded microplastics that I've ever seen.
He says it's devastating to see remote beaches where plastic particles are more numerous than sand.
Where we were walking on a rainbow-colored beach of plastics. And the microplastics is, I think it's the issue for our generation.
But for now, the plastic onslaught continues.
Check this out. This whole bank is basically foam. As far as you can stick your hand in, as far as you can dig in. Completely disheartening. This whole bank of this whole bay.
In such a beautiful, pristine area.
A fleet of vessels normally employed in the tourist trade is being used to support the cleanup, helping house and feed the workers.
Here we've actually been able to make an industrial scale difference, and it's really exciting.
Ross Campbell usually hosts foreign visitors aboard his boat. His business was hit hard by COVID-19, but he and other operators have shifted into cleanup work, paid by a $7 million plastic removal fund set up by the BC government. He wishes more people could see the scale of this largely hidden problem.
There's two ways of looking at this. You know, I could either light our hair on fire because it's an insurmountable problem, or we can realize that the very fact that we're doing this is letting the world know how bad the problem is and it can't be avoided any longer.
From the beach, debris is slung out beneath a helicopter. It then travels the coast by barge. Finally, it's loaded into a truck and sent here. This new recycling center has been created to handle the unique needs of ocean plastics.
These are barrels.
With concern growing, many are calling for the plastic industry to do more.
So a lot of these materials are contaminated. So we've set this center up to manage these materials specifically so that we can create specific products out of ocean plastics.
The final product, recycled pellets in need of a market.
The effects of plastic pollution are really being felt on a global scale. And this is putting a lot of pressure on companies to do something about the plastics that they're using and selling for their products.
Although the BC effort appears impressive, here's a sobering statistic. This year's entire cleanup project will likely gather about 400 tons of plastic. But over the course of this year alone, about 8 million tons will be added to the world's oceans. On the beach, a message to the world's plastic polluters.
It is quite disturbing. Garbage cans are made for a reason. That's not supposed to be a garbage can.
In the end, all this hard work is only a temporary solution. That's because as long as plastic waste is entering this ocean, it's going to end up in places like this. Greg Rasmussen, CBC News, Estevan Point, BC.
Hi, my name is Momo Chan.
My name is Jolene.
Welcome to our Vancouver.
Coming up, Belpuri examines the history and evolution of the South Asian vote. Hi, welcome back to Our Vancouver. I'm Gloria Macarenko. Now, at election time, voters of South Asian descent play a pivotal role in several ridings in BC and Ontario. Now, in recent decades, the community has managed to turn its grassroots activism into political clout and even put some India-specific issues on the table. Although, as Belpuri reports, it remains uncertain how they may influence this next election.
Suki turned to Min Jun and yelled, "I think she's strange."
Sandeep Sodhi's book is a multicultural cast of characters, just like her classroom.
When I read aloud to the children, they love it when they can hear an ethnic name.
Sodhi was a child herself when she and her Indian-born parents immigrated here from England.
I remember very, strongly that my father used to say we have to, vote for who was able to bring me to this country. Which political party?
Good evening, दोस्तों एक बार फिर तुम्हारा सारा दा निੱਘਾ स्वागत है प्रोग्राम इवनिंग न्यूज़ शो ਦੇ ਵਿੱਚ।
The federal election is also top of mind at this daily Punjabi news program.
There was a time when it was very important to have our symbolic representation in the BC Ledge, in the Parliament, in the city halls. But now things have changed because almost all parties are giving representation to South Asian communities, especially in the ridings with sizable population of South Asians.
For example, in BC, it's not unusual to see ridings where all major party candidates are of Punjabi heritage.
So then people start raising hard questions.
Those questions are largely in line with mainstream issues like housing, healthcare, and the economy, but others are community specific. Take the Indian community, for example.
Indian issues continue to
cross the oceans and land here.
Pockets of the community are actively engaged in the plight of Indian farmers opposed to agricultural reform in that country. There's also a push to lift the ban on direct flights from India and for family reunification.
Historically, the immigrant South Asian community has been politically aware for decades. It was previous generations here in BC who fought for years to actually win the right to vote in 1947. And since then, its political savvy has been continually evolving.
Second generation kids who've never gone to their home country and are born here, have lived here, have settled here, their ideas are also evolving. And I think they will shape how we look at politics as well.
It's happening already.
I have empathy for what's happening in India. I have empathy for what's happening in other parts of the world, but that should not justify how I'm voting for my leader here in Canada.
So far, none of the major party platforms mention anything about India-specific issues, but the leaders have all spoken in support of Indian farmers. Belle Puri, CBC News, Vancouver.
Hi, hello. Hey, I'm Clara. You're watching Our Vancouver.
Belle, thank you so much for that story. Well, it is back to school time, and for a lot of families, that means buying a new set of shoes for each child. Shoes are a big deal, right? So much so that when an international master shoemaker came to Vancouver in 1985, the CBC did a story on foot-famous Dominique de Miola. Take a look.
The master set up shop today in a downtown Vancouver shoe store. De Miola doesn't manufacture shoes. He patiently builds them, layer by leather layer and stitch by stitch. He began doing this at 6 in his native Italy. Now, working for American shoe manufacturer Johnson & Murphy, he finds he's practicing a dying art. It just takes too long to produce handmade shoes.
And when it takes so long, nobody wants a loan. In the manufacturers, they won't pay for somebody which can produce and they can make no money. That's why it's a dying art.
Prices are steep. You can get ordinary leather casual or Oxford-style shoes for $500 a pair. The cost shoots to $3,000 and more for shoes made out of alligator, snake, lizard, and ostrich skin.
Well, I sold the boot, cowboy boot. I made some 3 pair of cowboy boot with a chef, all the alligators, and that was $3,500.
De Miola has made shoes for every American president since Harry Truman, but has yet to get an order from Ronald Reagan. The work is hard. It takes up to 15 hours to turn out a single pair of shoes. De Miola has no apprentices, so he's just about the last of his line. He says he'll retire when his hands begin shaking and his eyesight blurs.
The shoes in here are made of a no palm. You can see the stitches over there is about 10 stitches in 1 inch. But eventually, when I had a good high, I can put a 12 to 14 stitches in 1 inch. So I'm going to try to work it long, as possible. But all of the depends, how are you feeling? And all of the depends, the company, they still treating me fairly good. And with, a good agreement, I still keep going.
By the way, the master himself favors snakeskin. He has 2 pairs, one made from cobra and the other from the hide of an anaconda. Terry Dolan, CBC News, Vancouver.
Now, when we bring you the day's stories here at CBC Vancouver, we have award-winning staff photographers to help us tell the story. Here are some of the images they collected this week. And that's all for Our Vancouver for this week. I hope you can join me weekday afternoons on CBC Radio 1 for On the Coast. Goodbye for now.